about that, right? I mean, it's a classic. Come on. Okay, welcome everybody. I would please ask you to look around and remember. Hello. Is it working? I usually don't have a mic. I speak so loud that I don't need one, so I have to check if it's really my own voice or it's a mic. Do you remember how many we were on our first VRVienna meetup? Let me remind you that. 24. Look how much we are now. And if you look at our website, at the meetup site, we are 845 VR troopers. So I would say we didn't do that bad for just being around for 2 years, right? So this wouldn't happen because of us, because who wants to listen to us? So it's all about you. So thank you so much for being here and for making this community awesome. On behalf of the whole VRVienna team, I would like to thank you for being here. And now it's working? Okay. I'm a bit nervous, as you can tell. So for those who don't know us yet, I'm Gabs, and together with Eva, Elizabeth, that is not here yet, but she's going to arrive soon, Axel, Sonia, and Monica, we are the core team of VRVienna. Monica is right there at the door. Hi. So VRVienna, quickly speaking, was born out of a wish to create two things. First of all, a platform for dialogue between VR creators and users. And secondly, a platform for creators to connect with other creators and perhaps form the very first VR guild of Austria. And yay! So in this, hey! So in these 2 years of existence, we have seen VR and XR technologies evolving in front of our eyes. So we decided VR was falling a bit short. So we decided to extend our field of interest to the fields of AR, MR, and every R that will happen in the not so distant future. So we are focusing on the whole spectrum of reality, which is of course called XR. We are also strong believers in collaboration, and we are by far not thinking that we hold all the pieces of the puzzle together. So this is why for this event, we have joined forces with the Filmakademie Wien. We have joined forces with the IVRPA. We have joined forces with Soundframe and Frisch, I don't know how to say it, Frisch, I would say it in Spanish. And of course, the International VR Day event that is happening since the 17th of November by VR Boys from the US VR Boys. And keeping this collaboration thought in mind, we have a very special guest before we continue with today's program. Thanks to Soundframe, we have Barnaby Steele from Marshmallow Laser Feast visiting us today. There's Barnaby. He's going to introduce us to the wonderful work that Marshmallow Laser Feast is doing in London. It's very nice to have you here. And they are, together with Soundframe, Barnaby is organizing a VR workshop tomorrow that they were kind enough to open their registration for us a few weeks ago, even though the registration was officially closed. And we have 4 lucky winners of a raffle that we were organizing for 4 places for the workshop. And congratulations to the winners. We're not going to tell you who they are. You know who you are because we're running a bit short in time. But congratulations, and you're in for a treat. So Barnaby is just setting something up. Okay. Just a second. Just out of curiosity, who was here 2 years ago in the first event that we made at the Filmakademie? Great! Well, one. But it's great to see a community is growing. This is what I'm saying. I mean, we were 21 people a few months 2 years ago. And now, wow. I'm not good at small talk, as you can see. All right.
Testing. Actually, can you hear me like this? It's always a bit weird having a mic. At the back, oh no, microphone. Okay, microphone, you're good. So I've got 5 minutes. It's a super quick, there's no sound on this. It's just a super quick hi. I've got 5 minutes and quickly, Marshmallow laser piece, who are we? This is kind of a 1-minute showreel we put together. We've basically been experimenting with technology and we set the company up to fund passion projects. So we do car commercials, try and hoover as much money out of the ad world as possible to fund our flowery little nature projects. And so that's been, and we all agreed to take bad salaries, so that's kind of been the format for the last 8 years. But we've been self-funding, and our virtual reality work has always been self-initiated and funded by Arts Council and different people. But we've got a new project coming up, which is our first ticketed event. It's going to be actually 12 people in virtual reality, all at the same time. You wear backpack computers, we're using heart rate monitors and breath sensors. Something's happened there, and I'm just going to give you a quick preview of it. So the sentiment to the work is called We Live in an Ocean of Air, and it's about basically the connection between animal and plant through breath. So we're as immersed in air as fish are in water, and if you could see that connection, see air filling your lungs, see your out-breath being absorbed into trees, seeing how that gets turned into sugars and cycled through the whole system, then through breath, it's like a metaphor for us not being individuals, but part of a much larger system. So this is a little trailer. It's a very little trailer. We've only rendered one shot. This is actually done in Houdini, not in VR, but we often work that way and it becomes a style guide for the virtual reality. So basically we're just visualizing the flow of oxygen and carbon dioxide through humans and plants. And then we're going to switch to the next one. We live in an ocean of air. So that's basically it. And I've just got a few tiny little bits because I've run out of time. I'm going to go into more of this on the workshop. But it'll be at Saatchi Gallery, so it's an experiment for us. Hopefully we can prove some kind of viable business model. These were some of the starting points of inspiration. Just quickly whiz through those. That's the layout of the gallery, and this is our tracking test, just to make sure it all works. So we're getting tooled up for the roller disco next year. Virtual reality, Ocean of Air roller disco. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, VRVienna. That was great. Is it on? I really don't hear the difference between my own voice and the mic. It's a serious concern, isn't it? Okay. Thank you so much, VRVienna. That's amazing. I can't wait to have a beer with you and ask you more questions about this because it's wow. All right. So moving on to today's topic. A lot has changed since the new wave of VR pioneers emerged in 2014. We have answered crucial questions such as, how do we tell a story in VR? Well, today we know that there's many ways to tell a story in VR. Or is VR going to replace traditional filmmaking? Now we know that it won't. It's a medium of its own. But although we are answering a lot of questions that we had pending for since 2014 and more, of course, we're only scratching the surface when it comes to using VR as a new medium and as a tool. For example, how can we harness the power of VR to create new types of content? Or, for example, how can we use a virtual experience, a virtual film, to interact, what tools we can use to interact with the physical world? And these are some of the questions that today's speakers are going to help us reveal the answers to. And about the event structure today, if you join us, if you have been joining us for the whole year, you're going to know that our format is usually we have the talks and then we have a Q&A and then we have a talk and then we have a Q&A. Today is going to be a slight change. We're going to have 4 main talks. We are not going to have a Q&A because we're going to have a 30-minute panel discussion. So this is important to know because if you have questions for the speakers, please write them down and save them for the panel. And in order to prepare ourselves for the panel discussion, we're going to have a small break in between. We're going to have 10 minutes of break. So so we just have time to set it up. And that's that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the first speakers of this evening. They are Sebastian Brauneis and Stephanie Schmidt. Let me talk a bit. You will set up the computer. Is it set up? Okay. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about, first of all, Stephanie. Stephanie is an editor and lecturer at the Institute of Theater, Film and Media Studies at Uni Wien. She works as a stage manager at the Burgtheater and as dramaturge of Das Virtuelle Theater. And about Sebastian now, he's a director, author, and lecturer. His best-known productions include TV formats as the legendary program Sendung ohne Namen and his 2018 feature film Zauberer. Since 2014, he's a lecturer for work in front of the camera at the Max Reinhardt Seminar, and for 5 years he's been involved in VR and directed the play Inside Lieutenant Guste. Please welcome Sebastian and Stephanie.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's an honor to be here. As you've already heard today, Sebastian and I are going to talk about directing and dramaturgy in VR. Can you all hear me? Because I don't get any response. We're talking on behalf of our first virtual theater production, Inside Lieutenant Guste, which is currently in the state of post-production. It's a linear piece of storytelling told by real actors on a virtual stage. The user is only invited to explore the action through looking in 60 Degrees of Freedom as they follow along the storyline. But first, a few words about myself and my part within our team. I do dramaturgy. As most of you might know, there are many definitions of dramaturgy. In film, it's mostly about script. In theater, we take a more holistic approach. I like to think of the dramaturg being the architect of the action, especially when it comes to VR, which is mainly about our perception of space. My job is to put the statics of the narrative to a test. Virtual reality is often described as a democratic medium in the sense that it enables the viewer's gaze to move freely and to choose his own focus. Linear narrative VR, on the other hand, highly relies upon the potential to guide the viewer's attention. On this journey, I think of the dramaturg as some sort of invisible tour guide, because I have to make sure that every element within the story serves the purpose to tell the viewer, look over there, or watch your back. To naturally focus the viewer's attention, the first thing we did is to place them in a familiar environment. We put them in an actual theater's chair. And this showcase setup, which you can see here, we both physical information and visual information are corresponding to each other. As we sit, we feel the haptics of the armrest, and we find ourselves in a similar position within the virtual world. The viewer finds himself on a 3D model of exactly the same chair within the actual experience. According to our previous experiences in the real world, Since our main goal is to tell a good story, why did we choose VR? Well, there are certain aspects VR is particularly good at. There's the feeling of presence, of being there, the notion of empathy, and immersion. Let's take a closer look at presence. How do we enhance the feeling of sharing the same room with the characters? The first step is to skillfully manage the transition from the real world to the virtual world. In our team, we talked a lot about the first thing we see when, metaphorically speaking, the curtain rises, and we're still not finished discussing that topic. The reference to familiar environment helps in terms of orientation.
You know my point about it.
Yeah, and you know mine. We're going to discuss that later in the open discussion. Psychological research shows that we feel more grounded when we can look down ourselves in VR and see our body, and even better if we can move our hands and feel some sort of response by our actions. But there's another point of mine. I personally am very skeptical when it comes to enhancing the sense of interactivity too much, because we are a linear piece of storytelling, and people might get disappointed when they try to grab an object and can't touch it. So I think the immersion is lost when you get disappointed in VR.
Yeah, the issue of gamification is a big one in our team. I have to agree on that. But nevertheless.
In VR, it's often useful to address the viewer immediately. In film, it often feels a bit dodgy when characters are speaking directly into the camera. But in VR, you share the same space. So why should the characters not be able to look at you? And most of all, you can play with different perspectives. Even the first-hand experience of embodying a character, looking through their eyes. The thing I love most about storytelling in VR is its potential to engage the viewer's senses. VR enables a very physical sort of storytelling. And whatever decision you make in VR, you have to keep in mind that your artistic choices have an immediate effect on the psychological and the physiological layers of levels of perception. So what I've learned on this experiment is that by constructing a virtual world, you can learn more about the real one. And so now Sebastian is going to tell you more about the story's design and his artistic approach.
Thank you so much for giving this introduction, or in deep look into it. As I started to get into VR and we started sharing our experiences, we found out that there's a lot of convergence by telling a dramatic narrative story in a virtual environment known as VR, with something that we already experienced as a very virtual place for experiencing a story. It's like the theater, because we see the fixed point, we decide where to look at, and we have something that's enrolling. Of course, we share also a lot of experiences from cinematic approach by just the fact that we use a camera and that we have a recorded piece of action that we cannot interact if we decide to use a real human character that is not playing live. So we coined the term of theatrical staging, cinematic post-production for our immediate approach, especially as I believe in the strength and the virtue of the theater and the traditional staging. So we found out that we tried to narrow it down for lots of you. This will not be something very new, but I still like to run through it. If you look at the development of a traditional narrative content, and this is our approach, where we come from. We have the theater, we have a covenant audience, a co-present live act, and it's 3D, it is. Then we have the cinema with a covenant audience and a separate recorded act that is perceived in CD and 2D. Then we have something from the beginning of cinema that is very similar to that what we experience as a VR device, because this is something like a very early stage as a kinetograph device by Thomas Alva Edison. It's like the very interesting thing about this, it's like it plays with singulation and also another form of immersion, because it reduces the outside world. We really dive into it but we see a loop and we have a very limited experience of a narrative content. And at the very end, we have something that is right now coming up, and it's like it works with simulation, it works of course with immersion. It's very interesting to see that also the Marshmallow Dreamfields are now moving into like a more communal experience, to create a co-presence also in a virtual space, but right now the main experience is a very single out one. And we have a felt co-presence and yet a recorded act in our approach. So we feel we are there together with the actor, we have this immersion and this illusion together. And also we can like interact by just like changing our posture in the 6D environment and like deciding where to look at and what we want to experience out of the whole thing that is running down. So this led for us in the end effect, to the creation of the virtual theater, as we like to call it. The beautiful thing for us is to not only have a vessel or a kind of a preservation device for something already traditional like plays, but also the way to tell them in a different. I stepped on the cable, I guess. in a different set of changing perspective, and this is the one thing that is interesting. That's the most interesting for me, especially if it comes to work to the work of the actor, because he's the one who leads the story, and he's the one who directs the voice. And if we move from a very virtual environment, from a very set-up environment to a very realistic one, we end up with three very specific points for the actor. It's like the awareness of the final setting due to the process of virtual staging and layout, because we very seldomly have the opportunity for the actor to rehearse or play in the actual setup that he's going to be placed in when the experience is composed together. We are trying to experiment by putting up the stage already and have the actor act with a VR device in this stage environment, but we are not as far flanked as we like to be on that part of the technique. We have to get a vivid recap of inner picture to muster out a strength for presence in performance, speech and posture, because we only have the other actor at all, if possible, and no co-presence of any audience, but still we are playing for an audience, and we have a lot of perspective change in the perception of the audience, sometimes addressed directly, sometimes even getting into the role, sometimes taking up some part of the play as an immediate co-actor. And so this is also something very interesting, because we want to still stick to the idea of putting theatrical pieces on the virtual stage. And for theater acting, it's very important for the actor itself to play together with the audience, to have this co-presence in the room. And so the actor does not have the feeling of the co-presence, because the audience is not present. But we, as the audience, later when we experience the experience, to say so, very much have this. And it's very interesting to explore this field, especially because I think it's also the democratization of plays, especially if we want to bring plays which are also very national and in a certain language grounded and rooted to a new audience, because usually if we see a theater play, we have to, and we are not familiar with the language, we only have the choice of like putting subtitles in the theater. And now for the first time we have the opportunity to just like follow the action along and stay close and stick to the act, and still can like subtitle something right in the eye line. So we have the opportunity to not only follow the play emotionally but also intellectually. And I think this is very interesting, especially for Europe, where we have so many languages and such a tight packed space and so many different ways of how theater is played out. And I think it's only the start of a very, very new ground of experiences, different cultures and different approaches of theater, by making them available. Also, you don't have to travel anymore. Potentially you can like just like, is this a red card? Okay. I'm finished now. I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you. And I would like to say something. I recently attended the VR Days conference in Amsterdam, and they said a really interesting phrase that said VR doesn't mean head-mounted displays. It means bringing you there. So it's great to have creators who are really bringing people responsibly as much as creatively. So thank you very much to Sebastian and Stephanie for doing that, for being responsible about your content and bringing people there with conscience. And now, our second speaker of the evening is Sebastian Endler. He is the director of photography of the 360-degree film Carousel and the 2018 stereoscopic film Bella Vita. He studied filmmaking in Canada, and he returned to Vienna, where he worked as a camera operator on several documentaries and feature films. In 2014, he began working with Gerda Leopold and Amilux Film, a production company focusing on new forms of immersive storytelling. Is it working?
Otherwise it would be all tinted.
Tainted love. Yeah. Super. Okay, please welcome Sebastian.
Is this working? Okay, great. Thanks a lot for coming here. It's a real honor to speak in front of you. So I work for a company called Amilux Film, and the whole company started when I met Gerda Leopold in 2014, and she had this idea of filming a play by Arthur Schnitzler. It's called La Ronde, Der Reigen in German, and to have it filmed out of the perspective of the main protagonist. And so in order to do this, I'll rush through this movie quite quickly. We devised a camera. The movie was called Carousel in the end. And we built this camera helmet with some GoPros on it, and we started to shoot a movie with we had the feeds from every head, from every camera, get together, and and we filmed the film. It was 1.5 hours long, and so I'll show you a bit of the footage that we created with this. Is it working? There we go. No, oops. How do I play this? Here we go. So what you see here is we have the feeds from all the cameras, and we put them together. We didn't know much about stitching back then, so there aren't really good transitions, and we didn't really know what to do with it. So we filmed this, and we were at a loss, and we wanted to have it on various TV displays. So what we came up with is a cinema cube. This was in late 2014. So we built this device. It's 10 by 10 meters tall. It wouldn't fit into this room. It's a huge thing. And we could project the movie inside of this. It fitted 70 people. We had this on display on a roadshow in 2015. We went to Germany to ZKM. We went to Hof, to the film festival where we had the premiere. And this is a little video. Let's see if I get it started. So you can see what it was. So the audience would sit there and have a communal experience and witness the film from every single perspective. So you could choose whatever side you wanted to do. The idea behind this is to not have like a subjective view, but like a more objective view. So you can see things happening on the side. That was the first concept we had. So we were planning to make another movie which was tailored to this projection space, which is complicated to build. It's a hassle to get a room big enough to do this. So we were planning a movie, but then we decided in Berlin at the festival, we really had the first good experience with VR where we said, okay, this is the right thing. This is what we have to do. And especially the stereoscopic aspect. So we started working on Bella Vita, which was stereoscopic, 360 degrees, and made for the VR glasses. We also have a version that is transformed into cube map format, which can be played in our Cinema Cube, which we tested and which looks awesome, but we'd like to show this some more. So this is the poster of Bella Vita we finally finished after 2 years of work. It was a lot of work. It's a 35-minute long movie. The reason why we did it in VR is because the director Gerda, she felt that VR has a dreamlike quality to it. And the movie plays with the ideas of dreams, and it's a self-reference to VR. You follow this protagonist, a young girl in the red top and the blue skirt, and she's a dancer, and she is in this dance company. So we had all these dancers. We have all these dancers dancing around her, which is interesting to see, and which makes use of the space as well. But where was I? So what was the concept behind this? So we didn't want to shoot it out of the first person. We wanted to have it in the studio. We didn't want any stitching problems. With the first sets, we figured out that shooting on real locations was very complicated, so we went to the studio in Vienna. We shot everything in chroma key, and we used live action CGI afterwards. The camera setup was our own. We felt we needed our own system. We didn't find any ready-made cameras that had the specifications that we needed to film this movie, especially in chroma key. In order to key, as you know, you need relatively high bit rates, and so then we decided to build our own. The advantage of that, shooting this way, just shooting one half of the set, and leaving out, we could have cinematic lighting, which is not very easy to have if you film 360 degrees at once. We could troubleshoot the system, and we can adapt the angles of the cameras in order to come closer to the cameras. So that was a big advantage that we felt. Yeah, that's key. So this is our setup. This is the station where we sat in the studio, and this is a short video. We also had a motion control system, which worked. Okay, so you can see we only filmed sections of every action, and we melded them together afterwards. So in order to have like the protagonist run down a staircase, we just filmed a quarter and we added it together in post-production. So at the end, it's a fluid walk down the stairs. So this is like an image of how we melded these different images together, and then everything with CGI as well. This is a short video of what we did for the dancing scene. So you have, I think it was 12 couples dancing all around you. And we just filmed everything in segments and had a very complicated choreography in order to manage to do this. So the audience is really in the middle of this ballroom with all these people dancing tango around them. And this is not quite the finished version yet of the movie, but close enough. So the techniques that Gada used for directing, I mean, as Sebastian said before, it's based on theater acting. So we use a lot of blocking in order to get the action closer, to move the camera. There's no way, you can have cuts, we found out that. You can cut within a scene and it works. You just have to follow certain rules, which aren't quite defined. You have to feel if it's right, if you can do it or not. I mean, these are the things you still have to test and you have to figure out. So blocking is key, getting closer to the camera, going away. That's what makes the movies interesting in the end. So this is another image of one of the main scenes. Yeah, this is okay. So back to the projection room that we have. As I said before, we projected it into this projection room, and as you can see, it's flawless. It's like a stitched, flawless experience, and you're seated in this room together with many people and have a communal experience. This is very different from putting on like a headset where you're isolated. So the idea, and why we still believe in this, is that we think you can show movies to an audience that isn't used to watching VR or isn't so close to new technology. They don't want to embrace it as fast. So it's a good tool to get lots of people through and experience this idea of 360 degrees. Yeah, so about the viewer, what else is there? Yeah, so we decided to shoot all of this in third person. We used breaking the fourth wall as a style element because we thought it felt very good if the narrator, who's the antagonist of the story, talks to you directly and tells you the story and tells you about the story. So we thought that was good. Do we still have time?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was too quick. Okay, so thank you very much. If you want to check out, we have a teaser downstairs. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Sebas. And one great thing that I love to hear this from VR creators when they're explaining their projects is that, yeah, we had this idea that we wanted to make, we had this dream that we wanted to fulfill, but we didn't have the tech to do it. So we went ahead and just built it. And it's not, I mean, with examples like this, we can really see that the technology is a bit of, let's say, a complicated thing to deal with. But in the end, the most important thing is to have the idea and to push it and to make it happen. And in the end, you are creating dreams for people, and you're inviting them to dream. So thank you for that. So our third speakers of the evening are Virgil Widrich and Martin Reinhardt. Virgil is an Austrian director, screenwriter, filmmaker, and multimedia artist. He's worked on a large number of films and multimedia projects, sometimes as part of a creative team. He's especially known for his short films and multimedia works, and since 2010, I hope I said this right, he's a leading professor of the master program Art and Science at the Angewandte. As for Martin, he's a filmmaker, film historian, and inventor. It's so cool to say you're an inventor. I want to say the same.
You want to see my bank account?
Not too far from mine. His company Indicam has pioneered digital movie making back in the mid-2000s. And in the last years, he developed a system to auto-correlate big sets of data together with physicist Leonard Koster. And I would like to extend more because I want to give you guys a stage because you have a very interesting project to showcase.
In only 7 minutes. So.
Yeah, only 7 minutes now because we. Please welcome Virgil and Martin.
Yeah. Hello. Now that I have the microphone, I have to speak. Okay. Yeah. Good evening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. What we want to do is we want to present a current project we have made as a commission artwork for ZKM in Carousel. And it's basically a little bit like an anniversary thing because I started this whole thing back in the 1990s, and the first collaboration work between Virgil and me was shown in 1998. So that's a 20 years anniversary for us. And we thought for this 20-year anniversary, we will want to make an extension to what we have done in the past. And the whole thing is about transforming time and space. That's why the whole thing is called TX Transform, T standing for time and X for space. And this is a model of how it works. So basically you see on the left side a normal film where you see on the x-axis the spatial part of the film, and on the t-axis like the slices, the time slices. So it's like a flip book you have in your hand, and every temporal slice is one page of the flip book. And the normal way to look at this would be to start at the first page and then flip it through, and then you come to the last page. And it's understood that the more slices you have, the thicker the book gets. And on the right side, we just turned this around for 90 degrees. And what we actually did is we started to slice the flip book along the time axis. And these slices in time create images of which you would not expect them to look realistic, but with some experience they actually look exactly the same as normal images, and everything in between is some kind of strange distortion. Here this is just a schematic of the whole thing. So what we're doing is in the upper row we have the input images, and in the row below we have the output images. And as you can see, all the first output image is created from all the first rows of every image. And the second output image is created of all the second rows of all the input images, and so on and so on. I'm just showing this to you to make you understand that this is actually a very rigid and very simple process. And also that the process is absolutely reversible. So if you have transformed something and transform it again, you get the original back. And also it's a completely lossless process.
So we did this 20 years ago, and we decided that instead of this flip book, which is like an information block, you can flip it. It's like cutting a telephone book and reading what's on the sides. And surprisingly, there is a poem to find. We thought, what about doing this in 360? So we thought about cutting this torus, which is when you have a cylindrical 360-degree film, and we thought about exchanging time and space in such an object. So after at least 1 year of thinking and testing and testing and testing, these are panorama photos, by the way, which show 7 minutes of events on St. Stephen's Square, and that's when you rotate the camera. The funny thing is, when you rotate the camera at the right speed, the background is unchanged, and only the people who move relative to the camera are transformed. You can see who was not moving and who was moving fast. The thinner people are, the faster they have moved. But if you don't move the camera, you get pictures like these. That means the background, everything that's static, disappears, and only the people who move are actually visible. So and I'm going to show you very soon what this looks like in movement. So we made a film project at the Babylon Cinema in Berlin, a legendary cinema. We hired 140 people to do a choreography with us, and we filmed them doing certain movements. And the camera we used is the Omnicam, designed by Fraunhofer Institute, those who gave us MP3 and MP4. They also developed this camera, which is, as far as I know, the highest resolution you can have. It's up to 10K, using actually the Indicams, which were co-designed by Martin. And through this mirror system, it creates a cylindrical and including a top view of the space. So these pictures are stitched together at the end and create our final result. And now I want to show you, and maybe we can turn down the light a bit. I want to show you the first 3 minutes of our installation, which is becoming a short film, a VR experience, plus a spatial installation. And it has also sound. Hopefully we hear the sound as well.
You mentioned that the composer also is present.
Using the VR player to look around a bit. You can see the attack already of time-space change. On the screen you see a TX transformed film, and watch now as it starts getting transformed back. So the people now become transformed and the screen becomes untransformed again, showing the film in the film. To a shot where the camera was not moving, therefore the background starts to be very transformed.
and who made the 360-degree sound for this installation, which also enhances the immersive character of the piece. But I think we should stop now.
We have 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay.
I can show you a little map how this is really working. Look at this white line, which is actually our scissor going through the block of information. So you can see, for instance, how that really works. When you go past, you see the projector light here. So when we go past that, you see the light all over. Yeah? That's when the camera is static. The background is the same on every frame. So when we cut through the projector light, we will have it on every frame because it was always on the same space. So as we go there, you get this white line. Or let's say we go to the end of the balcony. You see now the balcony here. And as we go over, this balcony only ends here. But if we have a rotation, I go to the next shot, which is a rotation. Now suddenly the background is normal. And that's because the rotation is the same speed as our knife, cutting actually through all the correct pixels. But as the people are moving relative to our cut, they start to get transformed. And as we go to the screen in the transformation becomes a normal movie here. Yeah. So these are actually the two things happening, and we only have a wipe transform between those different shots to create the effect we have. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should also say that it was shown in the and still is shown in the 360-degree panorama lab in ZKM. So if you have a chance to see it, that would be the best way to look at it. Or at Virtual's VR goggles. So we have them with us. So if you want to see it, just tell us.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Whoop. Whoop. Thank you very much, Birgit, Martin, for the lovely talk. Your presentation reminded me a lot of something I was reading in the Dawn of the New Everything book from Jaron Lanier. That Jaron Lanier is considered the father of VR. He always says that depends whether or not you believe the mother of VR. That's always a comment. But he said that when he was confronted with the question of what is VR, right? Is it art? Is it science? Is it math? Is it tech? And he said, well, none of the above and all of the above. I mean, it's everything at the same time. And I think your project is a good example of that. And thank you so much for sharing it with us. And thank you for teaching us something new today. All right. So our last speakers of the evening are, I don't need to read this to know it, is Axel Dietrich and Martin Stegmaier. Axel is my husband, by the way, that's why I don't need to read his name. So Axel has been working in immersive content since 2009 as a freelance professional. Before that, he worked for 16 years in the field of VFX, 3D animation, and motion design for clients in Barcelona, Munich, and Vienna. All these fields paved the way for his current role as a VR producer. In 2017, he founded Frisch, Vienna's first production company solely dedicated to the creation of VR experiences. As for Martin is he's in the VFX industry since 2001. He started in as an all-rounder, working in animation, compositing, and motion graphics for TV commercials. He specialized in compositing for film in 2009 and worked in London and Vancouver for movie production companies such as Framestore and Digital Domain, making VFX for Hollywood films. He's also teaching VFX here at the Filmakademie, and since the beginning of this year, he supports Frisch, applying his knowledge to solve the new VFX challenges that 360 content brings with it. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, sweetie. Gabi, for this very nice introduction. Okay, location-based entertainment, virtual reality. We're going to talk about this, but first we have to go back a bit and talk about virtual reality, right?
Yeah, before we can
we talk about location-based virtual reality entertainment, we should have a look what happened to virtual reality in the last year. Let's take a look at the Gartner hype cycle chart for emerging technologies in the year 2017. First of all, Gartner is a research company. It's doing research and analysis for other companies. And they brought us this chart here. And we see virtual reality is not at the peak anymore. It moved beyond to the slope of enlightenment last year. And if we even have a look at the chart from this year, VR is not here anymore. So where is VR gone? It's not away, but VR is not an early emerging technology anymore. It's a fully fledged industry right now. So why don't you guys don't have VR glasses at home, at least one? Who has VR glasses at home?
Okay. These guys do.
Yeah. Well, we are VR user group.
Your friends, why don't your friends have them at home?
Okay, so because not all people have a VR, and that's just a cause of it.
It's nothing we have to be worried about, right?
No, we don't have to be worried about VR because VR follows the path of adoption like every other technology. If you have color TV, VCR, PC, cell phone, internet, and virtual reality, the adoption is the same. First, VR is going to be consumed out of home. After being an early emerging technology, it's going to be consumed out of home, then maybe at home, and later on any mobile basis. So from this point of view, we are going out of home, and now we are at the location-based virtual reality entertainment systems. So what does location-based entertainment VR has, like, what brings it?
What makes it special, right?
Yeah, what are the benefits? So it's a social experience. Location-based VR entertainment can be joined together. You can go with your friends there, enjoy VR, and enjoy VR on a very high quality. And a location-based entertainment system with virtual reality, everything is made perfect. You have like high quality glasses, you get haptic feedback, you get physical feedback in a very safe environment. And one of the main benefits is accessible for everybody. So there's no problem with costs, there's no lack of space at home. And when it comes for the geeky cable thing and computer stuff, it's just easy. Go there, it's accessible for everybody.
You don't need to know how to set it up, no? Anybody can do it, right?
Yeah, anybody can. Just go there, enjoy it together as a social event. Even you can do it in Vienna, like there's a VR cafe, it's called Fry, in the 7th district, where people go there and enjoy VR for the first time. They have like different experiences, so you can just try it out for the first time. And when it comes to location-based VR systems, we had a project together. It was called The Clown.
The Clown.
In the Vienna Prater.
All right. Yeah, we were happy enough to, or lucky enough to be invited to create content or create 4D motion, right, for the Wiener Prater. What exactly is it? So it's basically like a normal Geisterbahn. You sit in a cart, you go through a more or less 3-minute ride, and you're being scared. The only difference is that you are not going to see different figures, different puppets moving, and being scared with these effects. You're having a 4D VR headset on, and you watch a movie while you ride on this cart. So when we approached this project, what was the main idea behind it? What thoughts did we have? So we definitely wanted it to fit in the Wiener Prater. So it had to have like this feeling of Vienna. It had to it couldn't be like, I don't know, space cowboys or something like this. It had to be the Vienna context. It had to have real actors inside. We very soon decided that only 3D animation wouldn't work, or only a virtual environment wouldn't be like close enough, scary enough, and wouldn't give us the right feeling. So that's why we decided to shoot everything in 360 video. We went for stereoscopic because it gave us a better feeling of immersion. And for the same reason, we decided to use ambisonic audio. Most of you know what it is. Basically, when I move my head, not only the image moves accordingly, also the audio moves accordingly, which gives us a very good feeling of immersion. When it comes to locations, we decided to film everything in Vienna. We found some really nice locations. Old butcher shop, a closed down butcher shop for years, right next to the Marilferstraße with amazing rooms in the cellars. We found the Bujati Villa close to Hitzing, which was also an abandoned villa with really nice scenery. And we filmed in the studio, and only the really crazy stuff that we could not capture in camera, we decided to film in 3D, to create 3D animation. Also, we were happy enough to work with Christoph Kutzler and Emanuel Felmer, so the theater goers of you might know these guys, and they did a really nice job. Also, talking about this project, we had some very, like some big challenges when it came to timing, because actually the ride itself, the cards, the whole motion that you make physically, it was already set in motion, like it was already, they started building it, and so the track was given. We didn't have any influence on that. So this meant whatever we created had to fit precisely to any ramp, any curve, anything that is going to happen with you physically. So this meant like creating many storyboards, making a really precise previous visualization, and then recording accordingly. We said stereoscopic imagery, which was a bit more of a challenge than we expected. Martin is going to explain to you a bit why.
Well, we decided to go for a stereoscopic 360 VR because it's as you said, a much more immersive experience, even with Geisterbahn, because things getting really close, and so you can scare the people a little more. But when it comes to stereoscopic VR in 360, it's a little bit of an oxymoron, because if you think of stitching like 6 camera views together and a monoscoping every rectangular situation, you can pan around the image wherever you want, decide what is in the front and where everything needs to be. But when it comes to stereoscopic, it's not like in a normally shot movie where you have like 2 eyes and one nodal point and you just pan around. When it comes to VR and you project it in glasses and you move your head, all the nodal points of both views are moving, and that makes it a little bit difficult in a mathematical way, because the experience is fine if you see it, but if you want to, like we had to, fit CG with live action together, it just runs not smoothly in it. So we had a little bit of a challenge doing the compositing and the CGI, putting everything together in a rectangular stereo 360 VR.
But in the end, you did it, right? So, and besides all this tech stuff, like imagery, tech stuff, don't forget that this is an experience that up to 500 people are going through this every day, like on a strong day, but yeah, a lot of people are going through this, and it has to work every single time. It has to work throughout the whole year, and it has to be timed precisely to give a good impression. And this required a lot of programming, testing, hardware, creating the right hardware, and taking care of the project. So these 2 images are showing basically 3 or 4 months of preparation for just this background work.
Yeah, can you please turn the lights down low and put the sound up?
So we have prepared a short trailer, a short teaser of so you get some impression of what you can see in the Wiener Prater. That's it.
Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please write it down, as Gab said, and we can discuss it later on in the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Axel and Martin. And yeah, I agree. It's very fun to have location LBE VR experiences, because we can first of all experience it with friends at the same time, and second, we get to try all the cool things are having like full body suits or the cool devices and everything. So it's great to try out different tech if we don't have to buy everything at home, right? So it's great. So right now we're going to make a 10-minute short break so we can prepare for the panel discussion. Don't go too far. Have some popcorn. We have prepared some popcorn for you. There's beer and drinks, so don't go too far and enjoy your break, and see you soon.
This is a sponsor or?
Yeah. It's outside. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Is it good? Very fun. Okay, thank you.
Ich erinnere, Moment, wenn ich gedacht habe, in deiner Bar, in der Bar deines Bruders oder so. Wir einen Abend lang gesessen, ich und die Susanne, und haben uns angesagt. Das war herrlich. Das war ein super Abend.
Stimmt, das weiß ich noch.
Das war großartig. Das können mich begleiten, aber wir können mal in den
Sag noch kurz was in Amerika, kannst du keine Frage. Also hat sich keiner rausgekriegt. Wie geht's? Wie läuft's?
Wie geht's? Wie läuft's selbst?
Jeder Martin ist
zum Stehen. Ich habe aber gerade überlegt, ich kann.
Und da geht es hauptsächlich um Audiovisual Art. Feld, es wird viele Ausstellungen gemacht. Und da war halt schon viel mit Leuten. Und dann hat sich jetzt die VR da entwickelt. Die beginnt schon ganz stark in Filmakademie, das Audiovisuelle Feld. Da haben wir jetzt auch ein paar Thank you very much. Well, that was very interesting. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here and giving this wonderful introduction. Thanks, GAPS, and everyone from VRVienna. Thanks, Filmakademie, also from my side. Also great to have you, Barney. I'm really looking forward to a great workshop tomorrow. Yes, so it's actually a very luxurious situation that the audience knows already everybody on stage. Well, one of the questions that always interests me the most is why would you make the choice of using a special medium? So in the next 30 to 45 minutes, I would really like to get as deep as possible into that question. And I would maybe start with you, Sebastian. What can VR show that theater or film can't show?
I think VR is a medium that comprises all the possibilities of all the other media to a certain extent, can show everything that all the other media can show, and so it can show more than all the media by itself can show. So I think that is a very interesting asset, because you have a very immersive medium with a very, very, very large and wide technological extent, and it depends on how to use it. But the feeling of being there and still having the opportunity of using traditional media forms in this media, nested in this media, means you are open to a much wider way of exploring not only your experience of a story, but also of a story experiencing you.
And would you say that the medium maybe also reflects back on the other media that you used before?
I think that, of course, I think that never a new media in any way never replaced any existing media, but it refined. Usually, it did refine the way that the existing media handled itself and made it, like, to a certain extent, sharper or more defined in its usage or in its reception, or in the way it was used to converge or to interlink with the new existing media. So it's like something that draws upon itself and reflects back, and maybe can open up new ways and perspectives of how to experience a room, for instance. Very interesting to see how mapping, for instance, will transfer itself onto normal theater stages, and how VR experiences will translate back into media that we already know, for instance, into film, into experiences that are classical theater plays and stuff like that. And it's going to be very, very interesting.
I would like to go further to you, Martin. How would you answer that question? Did you find any new solutions maybe in VR that you didn't find in the media art that you used?
Well, I actually would turn the question around. I think that the most interesting thing is that it's not written in stone what you can do, and so there's a broad way, a broad field of experimentation still possible. And in my understanding, the media has not found its final form or whatever, and maybe there is no final form, I don't know. But from an artistic viewpoint or an experimental viewpoint, I think it's always interesting if there's no boundaries to begin with. So that there is like the utopian vision of everything's possible at the moment. And of course, once you start to do it, you bump into technical problems and limitations and whatever. But I think that's always the same thing with technology. It's a big promise. Once you do it, it's a pain in the ass. And once you overcome the problems, it might be wonderful. So that is what keeps me going. Is that that it's still an open form. That is still a lot of space there. But this is actually true for the old media as well. So it's an unwritten book. say the numbers of applications as we saw today is vast, and I think that there's a lot of potential in. Personally, I think that there's a lot of potential in augmented reality because it really can be used as an art form, but it's also something that can be used in a very practical form.
But may I ask you to be a bit more precise when it comes to your personal use? True, it's very broad, but could you give us like one or two ideas or thoughts that you would have?
No. No, we're very, very deep into 3D hype when it came up, and as a company, we really kind of met a lot of people. We talked, and I think 3D was very interesting because for the first time, the industry really kind of took it very serious, and the industry came up with actually functioning and cheap displays, for example. And now what I feel is that VR is not the better 3D or something, and the industry is very shy. That's kind of the industry I come from. It's not the gaming industry. It's the cinema industry. But on the other hand, they feel that they might miss an opportunity or something, or that they have to produce something. And personally, I feel the same thing. Like talking from a technical perspective, it's somewhere in the middle, and that's the thing that interests me. But I personally don't really have the big vision. Sorry.
That's okay. That's maybe part of the interesting thing. So I come to you, Sebastian. Like cinema would be also your field. Can you give us a very a deep insight of how this evolved for you, working in VR?
What do you mean by an insight?
What did you learn, or
what do we learn?
What's different to the movie that you knew before?
I think what's interesting about VR is that, as Martin said before, there are no rules set in stone at the moment. So you can really experiment and try out different approaches of how to depict the situation. So what we did, we had a very classical, very simple narrative story, and we tried to show it in the most interesting or most compelling way possible. So this can be in an abstract form as well, which can also work in traditional theater and traditional movies, but I think in VR it's even stronger because you're teleported into different situations that you don't expect before. I mean, also the way VR tells itself is in the end, I mean, just like Sebastian also has a movie where he says most of the action takes part in front, but even though we also have this approach, so most of the action that's relevant is in like a wide-angle shot basically in front of you. But the possibility to look on the side and to perceive more and to be able to tell little stories and have little pieces which can take place on the side and little side actions which you can represent at the same time is just something very interesting and something that we've started to explore, but we haven't done it to the fullest yet.
Would you want to tell us a little bit about the story, or is that too spoiling?
No, I can tell you about the story. So the story is it's not that simple, but it's a fantasy story. There's this dance group that's dancing tango in this house, and there's a man that tries to steal dreams of people, and he puts them in a jar and he keeps them, and he can visit them all the time. So he catches this girl that gets into a fight with her boyfriend, and he takes her into this mirror world where he tries to capture her dream, and he tries to put her in a jar or put her dreams in a jar, and it's about the struggle of getting out. So the idea was because VR does feel like, or the first impression that we had with VR was it felt a bit like a dream to be in it. You're teleported into a different world, you go somewhere where you've never been before, and we tried to emulate this and try to tell a story that also deals with dreams. So this was like the idea of a self-reference. Yeah.
Okay, nice. This may be a good how do you call that? Überleitung? Transition. Very nice. Thank you. When we talk about dreams, yours would be a nightmare, I guess. The ghost, or the clown. Sorry, not the ghost. I found that very interesting. But maybe first the question: what really fascinated you in VR, so that you even found it frisch. Can you say that one sentence that you would tell everybody?
That one sentence. Okay.
That makes it so clear.
No, in the end, it's well, when virtual reality, as we know it now, I mean, it exists for a long time. We all know that, right? But now it's very accessible, and it's possible for many people to create it and experience it. And I think we kind of opened a Pandora's box, if you want to see it like in a negative way. But on the other side, I also see it as a great challenge. Why Pandora's box? Because, as we heard, there are so many possibilities, so many ways to create content in virtual reality. Maybe interactive, non-interactive, 360 video, stereoscopic, 180 video, all this, and you have all these choices, and you have to try to make the best choice to tell your story and make the viewer experience what you want them to experience, right? And so, yeah, I found a company and solely concentrate on that, because in the end, I think I'm a person that likes challenges, and this was basically the biggest challenge that I could wish for in my professional career. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I would like to talk a bit more about dramaturgy, and that's why I also asked you about the story. So maybe we can do this the other way around this time. And please feel free to also, open the discussion if you want to. Don't wait for my questions. But dramaturgy, how would that evolve for you when you, or Gerda, of course, she also wrote the story. But could you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, it's very interesting also the movies that you did before with the several screens, and can you give a little insight in how dramaturgy changes, also in terms of the spectator, when you make it free, or when you make them free to watch wherever they want to in the 360 degree?
I think it requires a bit of planning and of understanding how you perceive whatever VR is. I mean, at the moment, for us, the idea was our movie was 35 minutes, it's almost 35 minutes long, so in order to experience it, you have to sit down. So this limits you a bit. Of course, there's revolving chairs and all that, but how did we approach it? I mean, one of the aspects was that we wanted to represent movement in the whole story. So we had like the scenes like I showed you, where you go down like a hallway or like a staircase and you fly through it. So you get a real physical movement, and it does something physical with you. So we tried to block everything around it. The same happens with the dancing scenes. We have this change of or these tides of a lot of action around you, and when the focus of the story has to be concentrated on one piece, it gets darker around you, and you can focus on one part. So using like the medium or the way a film is, or the way the medium is, to explore the inner being of somebody. That was one of the goals that we had with the whole story, I think. And we tried to adapt the set and everything around, the whole mise en scène, just to be able to tell the story the best way possible. But I think it doesn't really differ that much from traditional film in the end, if you think about it. You just have certain limitations that you can't break. You're always in a 360 degree situation. So you can cut to closer situations, to closer scenes. We've experimented with that. It didn't work all the time. Sometimes it works. I don't really know why it works sometimes, but it does work sometimes. So we're trying to figure that out. But yeah, I mean it's a lot of trial and error, I guess, with these things. But yeah.
You're nodding, Axel.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But yeah, as we said, it's a challenge, and I think some of us just take it, and we're all developing this medium as it goes. We're in very exciting times right now. I think when you look back at film, how long it was taking to develop to the actual stage right now. We're now in the very beginning when film. We're back to location-based entertainment, where films were shown in how you call it, in kermesses, and it was basically something that you went to entertain yourself and watched the new great thing. I'm very curious to see where it's going to go, where it's evolving, and to see where it's going. Yeah.
Sebastian, would you want to tell us a little bit more about Inside Leutnant Gustl and the story behind it and how that worked for you as the director?
To start with, the initial approach is like one of the driving interests for me getting involved with storytelling or dramatic conflict, or with conflict, because without conflict no drama, and without drama no pleasure, probably, is a certain sense of loneliness, and the topic of loneliness above all. And VR is to some extent a quite lonely medium, because you right now experience it rather, like, as I said, you're very singled out. You experience you taken away, you're teleported to a different place. Nevertheless, I think we all have this strong drive or urge to experience something that we call freedom, and so VR can give us this kind of freedom because it immerses ourselves in a total different place. And I had very strong and very free experiences when I was going to traditional cinema, and it was like that I really saw movies and I got so immersed into the movie that I had something like I call a déjà vu, like, because it felt so strong, like my story, and I was totally into it. And then when I first experienced VR, it was tricking me, because I didn't need this shortcut, or I didn't need to put in that effort to immerse myself. But just like the medium itself immersed myself, so I could start much further down the road with the story that I wanted to tell. And of course, the other thing that we all long for in our everyday life in the experience is like kind of truth. We don't like to be lied at in a certain way, and we definitely can tell if that happens. And so this is also something that is also very, very pushy for me. So I wanted to have real people. I wanted to have an act that I can experience, and I want this act to be real, and I want to immerse myself in this act and like tap into that freedom, or on the opposite, in the constraints of them, to experience my own freedom. And so Inside Leutnant Gustl seemed to be Leutnant Gustl by Arthur Schnitzler, like we like Schnitzler in the VR community, I guess. Seemed to be a very interesting story, because it tells a lot about the constraints of young people that are still transferred, that they still transfer in our times. And also it's very interesting because the experience of immersive experience like VR suddenly translates into the experience of a story that is happening around you, and eventually, and that's what we are trying to achieve in Leutnant Gustl, and in the way we set it up, is that we start questioning the perspective that we have. It's like there is something happening through this play when we start to realize that we might be this Lieutenant Gustl, and we get the point of view that we are actually him, and we are just recapitulating something that has happened, but then it's coming to us and talking to us. It's like this two persons who are also like both Gustl, and it's like this little devil and this little angel that quarrel on your left and right shoulder if you should do something bad or something good, if it's alright to experience it like that way. And then we are suddenly put back into the spectator's chair, so by changing the perspective all the time, and that really translates into something that I call artistic freedom. And so that was very interesting, and that was a kind of immersion that was hard to achieve on a traditional stage so far for me, or in a movie, because in a movie we see what the director wants us to see. On stage we see more like what the actor wants us to see. In VR, probably we can trick the people into the feeling that they see what they want to see. So I kind of like that, yeah. And of course it's all playing tricks with people's minds, because I'm finished now. I know this goes on quite a bit. There's this popular saying that the eyes are the door to the people's souls, and VR only works just because you see it, like just
the eyes does all the tricking. All the physical experiences we have in VR, they are not really there. It's just like we see something, we have some kind of movement, and the body will just like follow along. So the longer we gaze into the abyss, to put it like Nietzsche, the longer the abyss will gaze into us. And so this VR achieves that on a level that all the other media just didn't do it so far. I really like that. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, Martin.
Well, if the eyes are the doors to the soul, the ears are the doors to the subconscious, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
And this basically was, I think, one thing that was interesting us. So, for me personally, the setup of a 360-degree scenario is interesting because you always miss 2/3 of it, and you never can be sure what's happening behind you. And this was basically the concept of our. So we had no story in the sense of the word, but something was happening, and that what was happening was made in such a way that it really made you lose your orientation. If you're really in this space, you there is a point in this whole thing where you don't know where you're standing, so you lose every kind of the space disappears, time disappears, and this was actually what interested us the most. It's not that something's happening on a certain point in this virtual space, but that you are somehow in a spiral, just put into an experience, and there is no way out. And in the end, you everything turns to normal, but something has changed. And since we didn't give this kind of these points to attach to, the music was extremely important because it kind of first it's also spatial sound, so it was an eight sound sources, loudspeakers, and that really made it extremely immersive. And Sigi used some psychological tricks too, I think. And it really is a very drug-like experience, actually. So maybe you want to say something about the musical setup.
Yeah, maybe some thoughts, because also the whole aspect of storytelling and drama, I think one chance of virtual reality is to skip drama, which is always about focus. In the drama you always put the focus, but then you have other forms. For example, Heidelberg Stifter, who in a normal book writes, I don't know, endless passages where he describes some little small details, which is absolutely not a typical European form of art, which is rather meditative Asian. And I think there are lots of art forms which we don't accept as art in that way because they don't fit our way of drama. For example, if you build a garden, which is a huge thing in Japan, for example, you don't have a fixed setup. You don't have a fixed way through this garden, but you have certain elements. And in our project, what was the amazing thing is that it's an absolutely straight technical process, and it generates some emotions which aren't emotional in the usual way, but what I like to call proto-emotions, because it erases time and space, and it gives you very strong emotions. And that was also the starting point for the music, and it was also about destroying the sense of. For me, it's an interesting topic. Space, experiencing space. I always ask myself, where is the universe itself? Because we say we are small particles in the universe, but where is the universe? And yes, those are questions which can really be painful or funny.
I think you're blowing up the scope of this discussion now. But
Give me the mic. No, thank you, Siggy. It's always super interesting also to discuss with you. No, what came to my mind, because I had the pleasure to see the work for 2 minutes, but I don't know why, but a question that I wanted to ask you afterwards really came from somewhere. I had the feeling I could be one of those figures being blurred in time and space just because I was there for 2 minutes, and that's actually really fascinating. Thank you. I keep losing everything. No, so my next question would be, could you tell us a little bit about feedback that you would get from the audience, like people freaking out, or I don't know. I saw also the TX Mirror, which I found very funny, because people are acting. Maybe also Virgil, you want to say a sentence? I don't know. So the feedback. Did you learn something from that?
It was shot in 10K resolution, so that's really 5 times more than you get in a normal cinema. And at ZKM they have quite a nice projection with, I think, 8 projectors. It could even be bigger. But people in the audience, those close to the screen, they are life size. And because of their high resolution, they really look real. And I saw a few kids who were playing hide and seek at ZKM, and they hid inside our installation. But at this moment, when all the people in the cinema look into the camera, looking at the kids, they suddenly had the feeling that they are seen. And one kid said to the other, "Oh, they are seeing us," and they ran out. And I thought, this is incredible if a movie can do that. That you really, and it's really true. You have the feeling that they see you because they are around you, and for no good reason they suddenly look at you. That I found very interesting. Also, I think that somehow deep in ourselves we know that our perception of time and space is an illusion, as many physicists say, and probably are even close to proving more and more as they progress in their investigations of nature and the universe. So we know there's something true about that time and space being reversed or falling apart. It's a little bit like death on the screen, and we used it like that in our first film. When in the moment when people die, suddenly time and space flips. I think that's a quite good way of using it.
So all the big answers were given. I have nothing to say.
Okay, so Sebastian, for example, in The Hague.
All right. After that thing said, I totally agree, and I think this is a really interesting way of applying it, also in a very traditional narrative way, and using it to dissipate borders and have a total new experience of it. And I see it, and I see VR as a tool for that itself. To as we said, we already talked about it, use it to raise a little bit this classical point of view situation that we usually have when we experience media in a traditional form. It's more something like that something is visually read to you, for instance, like it's a storybook children that is read to you, but in a visual way. It's like this dreamlike quality that was also talked about by Sebastian, and I totally agree on that, because it really gives you the opportunity to move the audience, really move the audience. It's a very profane thing. If you move the camera, you move the audience, and you really have an excitement and a sense of movement, so you can really be moved, but also in both ways of the meaning, to move someone physically, but also to have this very, very special feeling of that it's something that's crouching up on you, or you're crouching up on someone, and this gives a very new texture. I'd rather see it like a texture, or a new layer of possibility to tell a story and experience something. Also, that you can really get into a new perspective of something totally new, because Marshmallow Dreamfields had this laser. Sorry. I was just hooked on my dream story right now. No, but this really amazing thing you did with the insect's perspective, and also like not only moving it into a perspective that was just like us seeing something bigger or smaller, which is quite easy, but also use it as a way of experiencing it in a total different, like haptic kind of quality, was something that really opened my mind. I was very happy to see the thing that you did quite early, because it was a big inspiration on one hand, and on the other hand, it let me think about how to do it. And I think this is the biggest quality, as you said, no borders yet. So there's a lot of technical failure and everything like that, and lots of glitches and lots of things that don't work. But coming from theater and working with Steffi very close on theatrical things, there's a lot of glitches on stage all the time, and so there's a popular saying, use it. It's just if it's not working, you just take it into the not working thing, into the experience, and use it as something that can be very special, and you really try to carve everything away from it, from the not working thing, and make it very pure, the not working as a very pure thing and a very pure experience, and you can learn something. Because I think that is something that we also thrive for. We want to have a learning. We want to put things into perspective, and VR can do that.
Okay, super interesting. Do you think it worked? Like coming back to the feedback?
Yeah. Sorry, I tend to set myself straight. Then The Hague was very interesting because we confronted a very international audience with our experience, which is a very localized kind of play. And I wanted to pick up on that as well. What I like is clashing forms. So we deliberately wanted not to do something media specific, but we wanted to take something very traditional, a very traditional Austrian piece of literature that is something like a common cultural good that we have here, like something that is has a very high value in a certain way, and it's proven already that it works, and wanted to clash it with a total new form of presenting it, and then see what comes out of it, and how an audience that is not familiar with Schnitzler or something like that at all, with Austrian culture at all. And the feedback was amazing, because the people had a very physical experience, and that it immersed them into a story that they had no knowledge about beforehand, but they could really get into it, and they started picking up on it. And you could see that also the acting was so intense in the experience. If they had seen it on stage, it's they were passing out. But as they were on the stage all the time and confronted in such a direct way, they were really sucked into it. And we really took them hostage in a way, but in a good way, I say, if there's a good way. And we had something like that. It was really like Stockholm syndrome of Arthur Schnitzler's creations. It was really good, and I think also Sebastian and I think the two of you will also agree that people don't necessarily have to have this big intellectual knowledge about what was going on, because you have such a direct physical interaction and reaction and experience, and I really liked it about it. And the feedback was amazing. People didn't speak any German word, it's in German, but they still were really invested in it because we had these subtitles, and I liked it kind of. Yeah. But we also had a lot of failure.
Which is also interesting. Yeah. Maybe in the next round, or I don't know, if we have enough time. I want to also come to you. Did you already get some feedback? Was it already, I'm sorry to ask that, was it already shown to many people?
The clown? Yeah, it's actually, no, I think it's been several thousand.
Okay.
Yeah. It's on since early summer this year, and yeah, a lot of people have seen it, young and old, male and female, and yeah, it's very interesting to see the different reactions, and the reactions are very different. So, just to give you a short idea of who perceives it how. Let's say that the hardcore horror freaks, they're not too much freaked out. Maybe that's because the goal, or it had to be possible to view it for 14-year-olds, so we had to lower the pace. But like also trying out with this medium, trying out new things and seeing how it evolves. I was sometimes surprised how that the big scares that we have in there, or like when we try to be scary, we tried out to be scary and see what happens. It was actually not as bad. It's kind of we were a bit disappointed that it wasn't so scary. On the other side, it gave us the opportunity to go a bit away from the usual Geisterbahn concept, which is just basically it's dark and then something scary happens and then it's dark again and then something scary happens, to tell a bit of a story and make that the special thing about the clown. And this is actually what we get the best feedback about, that it's different in that way. And interestingly enough, we get a lot of positive feedback from the female crowd and let's say the younger crowd. So that was interesting to see for us.
In what sense?
And that they just enjoyed it, you know. They were scared, but not to the point that they were like, I don't know, disturbed for their lives, you know. Although there was one girl I feel really sorry about. She came out really crying and said, I won't be able to sleep anymore. But she was too young, and I think her father shouldn't have shown her. I was really sorry for her.
Yeah, can imagine.
Yeah, but I think she will get over it.
And would you? You will recognize when she once comes like at night. I want to give it back to you.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to happen. No, but would you say that people come back, or like also when I want to come to a business level, maybe would you say that this is the thing, like also for the Kata, for example?
So, like you said, it actually we just see 1/3 of the movie every time that we watch it, maximum 1/3, I would say. So a lot of people actually repeated to see the other part, right? And that's interesting when it comes to the business part. Also interesting for this whole concept is that like having the same same hardware and all this, you can play different movies in the same Geisterbahn. You can't do that with any other ride like this. So actually our client is very smart.
Big unicorn experience.
Exactly. Yeah, we thought about this like hardcore.
The scary one,
no.
Unicorns and rainbows. Yeah. So yeah, we talked about this possibility.
So this could be a business model for you as well, to like produce a new scary movie or something for that one for every year.
Yeah, we are actually exploring possibilities there at the moment with our client.
Good. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So Sebastian, feedback, the audience.
Just one thing I wanted to add to the previous question was that, because you asked the how do we stage it, how do we plan it, one thing that we learned is that, especially in the edit, the one thing that really counts is the gaze. So you can influence, I don't know, through movement. If somebody swipes the camera, the audience will probably automatically look to the left. You can assume that that's the main viewing direction. That's one of the tools that we try to use as much as possible. So if something goes up, then the next scene starts on the top or down or sideways. And also the physical aspect is something that we always took in count. How do people receive the movie? So we showed it to, I have no idea how many people saw it in Venice. It's been touring around. I haven't been to all the places that we were. I think what was interesting to see is that the audience in Venice is pretty spread. So you have film students and you have old people. You have people from the street coming watching it. Older people gave me the best feedback. So everything 40 plus, because they've never seen anything like that. And I have to say one thing. It's interesting that we all here on this panel, we don't do 3D animation. We all filmed with real people. In Venice, I think 80 to 90% of every movie presented was an animated movie. So there's not much content at the moment with real people, and real people do have something special. I don't know, I feel if you look at an animated rabbit or whatever, you can feel empathy for them. But there's something about seeing somebody real struggle with a situation that you can't replicate, or you can't yet replicate with 3D animation. There's something missing. If the characters look too realistic, you get into this uncanny valley that it just looks creepy and you don't feel anything for them. So I think having something, I mean, there were other movies as well that were also very well received. What happens is you create this empathy, and people really, I think they liked it a lot. That they gave us very interesting feedback. things that I didn't think about before. One woman was crying as well because she was so happy that all of a sudden she can, because her son also made a horror experience there in Venice, and this was the first VR she saw with real people, and she felt so connected to them, and she totally broke down and was so happy to see that. That was interesting. But I think what VR does is, what I think about VR is in storytelling. So if you tell somebody a story and he listens, it's like an active thing. If you read a book, it's also active, and you have to proactively immerse yourself into the story. What Sebastian said before, or what everybody's saying, is that in VR there is no barrier. You're drawn into it right away. Whatever it is, whatever situation you're in, you accept it right away, no matter who you are, no matter what your cultural background is. You just understand it because it's what we see, and if you move your head, the situation moves. And with other pieces that are volumetric or room scalable, even more than that. So I think that's maybe the next level that we're trying to achieve, to have the real 6 degrees of freedom or 4 degrees of freedom, whatever it is, yeah? So that will make it even more immersive, more incredible, and more realistic, so that maybe the brain believes what it sees. So I don't know if you've all seen bad VR. Have you all had the experience with shaky VR that makes you feel sick? The reason why that happens is because your ear doesn't feel any movement, and you really physically feel sick. So this is the power of VR. So people viewing bad VR, they can get seasick, and they can vomit, they can throw up, they can get really sick. And one of the things is, I think, to produce good VR is a responsibility to have smooth and steady movements, to have a controlled situation that people don't get sick. And maybe that's one of the reasons also that VR hasn't spread so much, because at the beginning everybody was watching GoPro footage of somebody jumping off a cliff or something. So that's not what we're trying to achieve. And by trying to tell a story as straight as possible and as fluent as possible, I think that's what really captures people and what they really like. And that's where the strength of the medium for me lies in.
That's actually a very, very nice thing to say, that you have a responsibility. And that brings me to my last round of questions before I want to open it to a Q&A in the audience. That actually, what came to my mind right now is that congrats to everyone. Like all of your works has been shown or premiered even on an international level, like the Filmfestspiele in Venice, Prater. Well, that's amazing. It is, absolutely. Still in Austria.
That's a dream venue for me, because Lieutenant Gustl ends in the Prater.
Lieutenant Gustl was premiered in The Hague, actually, and yours at the ZKM in Karlsruhe. So this is a very successful international round, actually, which is amazing, because for me it shows on which quality level things are going on here, and yeah, that makes me feel very good. So maybe for my last round, I would like to ask you for one last sentence. What are your next projects?
Okay, so shall I start?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next project I'm working for is called Shtetl VR, because for me, I mean, you've all heard of the Jewish shtetl. It's a lost word that doesn't exist anymore. It's been eradicated, and there's no way to visit it again. And so what we're trying to do is we're creating an experience which is a mix of a film and interactive for schools. And we're at the beginning of this process. We're still working and trying to get funding for that, to get children to experience the Jewish shtetl how it used to be. So it's kind of like placing somebody in a time travel. It's going to take place in around 1900. So it doesn't have anything to do with the Holocaust. It's just trying to recreate this culture that has been completely lost, and making people understand what it used to be, and maybe through that making them understand how tragic the whole event of the 20th century were, to eradicate this culture forever. And we're building. It's going to be interactive. We're going to get the idea is to have like a set of glasses and go from school to school and let the children experience that. So that's the next project, and it's going to be filmed with real people. We're going to do it in Yiddish. So one of the important aspects is also to transmit the culture, which is also language, music. All these things should be experienced in a setting that is photorealistic and that looks real, with real people to interact with, and also have a gaming element in it, because it's geared at children, to have them even more immersed, so they can learn. They play the dreidel game, and they learn the alphabet a bit, and then they're to test it with that. So that's the next project.
Okay, we just talk about the next project. Okay. So
your idea for the future. I don't know.
It's fine. So one project for next year that I'm really excited about is the Wildnisgebiet, wilderness area, Dürrenstein it's called. It's actually the biggest still preserved Urwald, damn it, my English, primeval forest, okay, thank you, in Middle Europe, and there is going to be a visitor's house. So the primeval forest, it's the idea is that you don't go inside, so it's good to have a visitors center to tell about what this is, and actually the big topic is wilderness. What is wilderness, and transport this idea and the values of this topic to a wide audience, anybody going there. And we are going to do this with different installations using like 6 degrees of freedom, 360 videos, and augmented reality is going to be a part of it. And I'm very excited to work on this topic because it's actually directing us towards like kind of where I feel like I want to really work in VR in the future, or XR as we heard today, because it has such a power to move us to see different perspectives and to in the end transform our lives like in the long term. It's putting us on the right path to really use VR for that, to better our lives in the end, and to make understand things. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. So I'll pass on the mic. Sebastian.
We also, of course, had various educational perspectives in mind, because not everybody can go to a theater, and so I think it's very nice that we now enter the opportunity of the theater that can come to you, especially also like move across borders and everything like that. But Lieutenant Gustl is something like a testing project, and we actually work on something that we rather see as a framework, and so we are right now establishing something that we call a virtual theater, which is a very boundaryless and very open space, and eventually we want to take it out to all those people that work in theater and drama, and provide it to them as a stage to play with it and to create something with it, and rather have it like as a platform, or think about it as a certain way of format. And I'm super excited what people would do in this new virtual theater house with contemporary or traditional plays, and we draw from a very, very vast resource of already written stories that seem to have a Berechtigung, a right to be told again and again and again, because they are important for us as a society, and they remind us of where we came from and where we go to. And this is the adhered goal of the virtual stage at the end, and we just see us as creators of more framework than of a certain experience.
Thank you.
Well, I'm personally back to Flatland, and the upcoming projects are not VR, but I'm in a think tank for a virtual concert hall, and this is getting into shape, I would say. So this is one project we have been working on for 3 years now, and I don't know about you, Virgil, do you have any?
Could you say a bit more about that? That sounds interesting.
Well, I don't know if Kurt Danner still is here, because he's actually the responsible person. He was here at least the first part of the... And these guys, they came up with a concept for Beethoven 2020. So this is kind of the city of Bonn wanted to celebrate Beethoven's birthday, and you might know that the Beethoven's estate is somehow split between Vienna and Bonn. So, and Vienna, since Beethoven lived here for quite a long time, has much more than Bonn has. And so the idea was, is there a way to present Beethoven's work in the original concert halls? And a lot of these places do not exist, but they have have a very specific acoustic quality, and also this quality is interesting for for the work itself. So now, if it makes a big difference if it's played in a small room, or if it's played in a church, or it's played in a dedicated concert hall. And so the first idea was, how could we kind of react this experience, this original experience of this musical performance. And now, since the city of Bonn has cancelled the project because it was too expensive and too big and whatever, the idea of this virtual concert hall still is somehow alive, and it's meant to be an augmented thing, so that there's actually a live performance in a virtual room. And since most of a big part of the team comes out of audio engineering, they have impressive ways to simulate different spatial aspects of sound, but they can do it in real time. So a real orchestra can play in whatever room they want to. And the question now is, how would you, what's the visual correspondence to this kind of performance, and who would possibly want this? And I mean, I hope I don't talk too much about secret things, but one idea, for example, is to have such a room in this kind of cruising ships, because people just want entertainment, and then you can say, okay, let's go to a concert in VRVienna in Vienna, and you have actually the same surrounding, but it's just a simulation. So that's kind of, and of course there's all this problem with like technical implementation and of course financing, and who's the audience to address, who is. It's, I mean, Prater is a great example, I think. So and it's a fun thing. I really want to see it. But it's wonderful because you can play 7 programs a day if you have the content ready. You just need the space. And I think I don't know if your example is so interesting, because it seems that people really are into it, and they pay money for that, and they really enjoy the experience and so on. But of course, it's a question of how versatile can such a thing be, and then can you reproduce it? Is it, if you build a one-of-a-kind thing, it's always very high risk, because it might work or it might not work. And if you, like IMAX did it, like if you have a one-of-a-kind system, and you have this, you have to build one theater in every city, it's also a big risk. And so the VR goggles are, if you want the cheapest, the low-hanging fruit. But these people are thinking like in a bigger scale, and I think it's very interesting. And as I said, I'm just in as a consultant, and it's not my risk.
Good. Interesting and good. Okay. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Also, your colleagues sitting in the audience, Stephanie again, Martin, Vigil, and Siggy. And do we have a little bit of time for a Q&A? I think 10 minutes or something. So.
I was just wondering, since VR is kind of like an interactive medium, did you think about, because all your stories are like told by you, like make the viewer tell the story by just choosing certain paths? I mean, are you thinking in this way at all, or is it like it's too far away?
Speaking for us, of course we have a lot of discussion about the interactive part, or like in the VR community there's a lot of talk about gamification of an experience, like freedom of choice and whatever. I think it's a hell of a lot of freedom of choice that we can just sit in there and then decide where we look at. It's like a very immersive kind of very low-level freedom of choice we already have. But of course, I mean, like now we have this stage, technology is not as far. We always wanted to work with real people, like to have this real real people experience. And we are not yet technology there is not there yet to have like a really volumetric capture of a real actor. So this is kind of limiting. We work around it with a shadow map. So we have kind of volumetric interaction, and we have 6th off. It's not just a normal 360 movie. And eventually, when the new systems are up and we can experience that, and also the new Oculus device is out that is like tracking inside out, not outside in, so you're free of the cable. I'd love to have the people walk on the stage, like for instance a volumetric experience, and walk between the actors. And we will see how we work around the glitches that will happen when they walk through the actors. So I'm up for that, but the form should follow the function. It's the approach.
In our case, I would say that there was no need for more interaction to tell the story that we had, or to put the viewer in the situation that we wanted them to be. It would actually have made it worse if you're able to walk around, if you're able to you get lost, you know. Again, in our example, I see the interaction more interesting when you think of the concept in a computer game. There you have what is happening in VR. You have a lot of shooters, so this is highly interactive. You can destroy everything around you, but what are you telling with that? You know, I think it's in the end what you want to transport with it, and that then defines what technology you're going to use. Martin, you want to
just join you for a minute. You said before, and an answer you gave that you give the viewer a little bit of a choice where to look at. But our approach at the Ghost Trend, at the Geisterbahn, we do not want the user to look at somewhere else. We force him to look at some point to scare him. You can't escape. You cannot look away. So, with our approach on local-based entertainment at the Ghost Train, it was a little bit different than other storytelling, because we do not want any interaction. We just want to force the viewer to look somewhere that we can scare him.
I also want to say that if you think about VR, it can be interactive. It doesn't have to be interactive as a whole. It's like a TV set can be hooked up to a PlayStation, and then it's an interactive medium all of a sudden. So whatever story you want to tell, that's what you do. Like what you maybe were alluding to were multiple storylines. So there are things that are interesting. I think it's a fascinating thing. It's of course a budgetary thing. So if you want to shoot 10 minutes and with multiple endings and multiple things, just by controlling the gaze, there's software that does that. There's branching out software as well. All kinds of things. But you have to produce that much more. So that would be a ratio of, let's say, 1 to 5 or whatever. For 10 minutes, you would have to shoot 50 minutes of footage. And this is more complicated with real people. So it gets a lot easier if you would use animated characters. But with real people, there are some constraints. So as Sebastian said, volumetric capture isn't possible yet. So room scaling is really difficult. There are the Fraunhofer Institute has like a system as well. But it's not, it's getting there, but it's still very complicated. Where do the shadows fall if you go around? Just think about, if you walk behind somebody, he has to turn around. He can't just turn his head. He has to turn as a whole person. So this becomes very complicated then, especially with film people.
Thank you for the panel discussion. As a computer scientist, I find it very interesting to talk to or to see a presentation about content creation, because that's the usual problem that we technical people have, that nobody creates the content for the things. What I wanted to ask about is the publication platform, or how do you see future publication platforms? Like, for example, I would be very interested to see inside like Gusel, but at the moment it is only possible to see it if you have an audience, I think a school class or someone that you rent out the classes for. Would it be possible, or could you imagine in the future, and also a question to the others, to if an individual has the hardware at home, if it is possible then to be able to rent it through some platform
dream, because I want it would be wonderful to have a very local story with a very specific local kind of cultural value to be available worldwide, because it will enforce probably in a way, certain way, understanding of what goes on. And so we are definitely looking for the platform, but we're still looking for the big break in the consumer device, actually. So it's like VR is still a little bit of a special kind of thing that not everybody has. And we are still missing out on this one big hit. Probably it would be a game or something like that really like pursue people to buy it. Like the PlayStation did a lot for the Blu-ray sales eventually, because everybody bought it for the gaming, but eventually everybody had a Blu-ray player, and so people got better quality movies. So that's something that we love it to be or become. Just like another medium that you can experience, especially if we'd love it to be experienced at home, because at home you are alone, and so it's like I don't like it that the thing we are driving for is more like something that we see at the end as a home experience, because then we really make the most out of this traveling to distant places, like from your own couch, like really bringing the theater into your living room to a certain extent. It of course will not replace traditional theater, but maybe it can be something like an entry drug into the world of theater.
Okay, so basically what we're doing, we're trying to distribute our movie as well at the moment, and we're using a kind of traditional approach to distributing it. So at the first we went to all the festivals. I've been to 4 or 5 festivals at the moment, and showed it there. After that comes the location-based situations. So there are some location-based cinemas, and we'll have that running for a while, and then comes the distribution platforms. There is no really good distribution platform at the moment, like Steam for video games, for example. We could put our movie onto Steam, but the question is, will people buy it for whatever fixed amount? So for €2, $2.50, whatever, are people willing to pay enough? And that's the question. A lot of movies have gone that way, or they've programmed their own app or whatever. There's like a horror app, for example, where you can they collect horror movies and you can download them for, I don't know, $3 a pop. There are certain things. Chris Milk's what's it called? In VR? No. Within. They specialize in focusing and looking at particular things, and it's like a Netflix kind of service. There are ways, and the Oculus store as well, where you can sell. But there is not a Netflix yet. That would be, I think, the ideal solution for most VR movies or most VR experiences, where you can license your movie to some person, and then people just have that and they just watch things. So that doesn't exist yet.
YouTube 360 or similar? It's not YouTube 360.
For 360, yeah.
YouTube 360.
Yeah, but there's no way of. You could put it on YouTube, but then there's no revenue in that.
Oh, I see. Okay,
yeah.
So there's no revenue system for you.
No curation, no revenue. There is stuff on YouTube 360, but how do you? I mean, movies cost a lot of money to produce, and you have to somehow try to get a little bit back.
No. I thought there was a professional channel for that.
Just a little with YouTube. I worked in a group of composers when it came to getting money for content which is in the internet, and it was really successful in the EU Parliament, but YouTube really launched a huge smear affair to really they came with conspiracy theories and stuff, and I guess in the actual situation YouTube has no interest that the artist gets paid. YouTube has interest in their shareholders, but that's really a huge problem. And also we all love YouTube, I think, because we all use it, but it really changed the sense of paying for content.
Maybe one small. Well, we came across this thing with Madison Square Garden. They have at the moment, they invest a lot of money into a venue they want to build in Las Vegas. So they will have a Madison Square Garden in Las Vegas, and I think the way they plan it, it's like they want to have events there, but these events should be broadcasted like in a VR sense, so you have to pay for it to be to be present at some concert or something. And on the other hand, they want to use it as a display device. So it works both ways. So you can have a live act there and watch the live act at home, or you go there and have a very different experience because the technology is so overwhelming. And I think this is an interesting piece of information that these concert providers, for example, they know that they are limited. They have one space and they have one evening where they can pay for the Rolling Stones. And how can they clone it? How can they make a business out of it? And I think these are a lot of questions we will see in the future. And the approach at the moment is a mezzanine scale that you say, okay, on top of all there is like the super immersive, crazy thing. People pay €100 to see it, and then you just go down and down and down and down. And in the end, maybe it's a website or a video stream or whatever. But it's like in movie making, you need different channels to earn money with. Yeah. So I think this we will also see in VR.
I just want to correct myself from before, and because there's a vanguard industry media that is always at the forefront of exploring new business models and new technology, and it's the porn industry. So this is like something that there are already ways in place for back in the days with VHS and Super 8 and everything. And VR is also there's a huge porn crowd in VR already, and I think they make money with it. Right now it's about excitement, but still they're already venturing into business capital.
Let's go home.
Well, are there any other questions? Because if not, there is one.
At the risk of exposing myself, the last thing was right. That's all I want to say.
Thanks for sharing.
Everybody.
So then, thank you very much again. For me, that was very interesting. I hope for you as well. And that brings me to one other protagonist of the evening, the IVRPA, which is one of our partners. And I would like to ask you if you want to say one or two words. Or you? Because we have this exciting exhibition back there.
Yeah, hi. It's nice to be here. I'm also from Vienna, and also Karen is joining me. We have brought some images from members from our association. We are based, we're founded from QuickTime VR. Maybe some of you know what QuickTime VR was, 20 years ago. Actually, IVRPA is 21 years old. So VR started really back in the days. And we recently changed our name to International VR Professional Association, not Photography Association. And just to say something about the evening tonight, I have to congratulate all the speakers. It's really impressive what you have created. VR shares one thing that is very interesting, that most people who do VR are trying. There's no fixed ways. This is not something you can just press a button and then it's done. It's every project you start is still new. You have to figure it out yourself, find new ways to present it. So this is my conclusion even from this evening and from what I've learned from the rest of the IVRPA. Everyone is still trying, and there's no fixed way. And we sponsored some drinks, so they won't go out. So enjoy, and thanks for coming. And yes, we have put some pictures on the walls. They're Karen collected some and we made some prints. Some are like little planets, if some people know what it is. Some are just regular panoramic photographies. They're different topics. We had a small budget since we are kind of a non-profit organization. I hope you can enjoy them.
We also have some videos and tours, stereographic, if anybody's into.
I also have a very loud voice. And I also lecture to 200 students sometimes, so I know how to scream. We also have on display some videos also. Our members are doing also video, but they're also doing stereographics, so if you're into 3D, I have some 3D tours. So you can just find me afterwards if you're interested. And thanks a lot, guys, for putting this all together. It's really a pleasure to be here and be part of this. So, yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thanks again, IVRPA. Thank you very much, the Filmakademie, for hosting us and having us. Thank you, Frisch, for the collaboration. Lemonade and Charity.
Yes.
Are also on the list. Well, thank all of you for joining us. And actually, we have to leave here, or we have to be out here at 10. But of course, we got a solution for that. Maybe you want to talk about that.
Yes, we have a solution for that. We are going to transform the Stammcafé in an experience court. Because everybody that brought experiences brought an Oculus Go, as I worked, right? They were mobile solutions for VR. So let's all go to a Stammcafé and let's experience VR together. And also, I want to talk about this envelope that you saw when you were sitting down today. I hope you kept it, and if not, I have a backup plan here for you. It's a surprise for you, and you have to open it at home. But also, with this surprise, this is not a surprise, but with this surprise that's in it, you also get a 50% discount for the clown at the Prater. That's right. So, check out the surprise and use the surprise as well. Besides the surprise, to go to the Prater. Yeah. And what else are we missing? Of course, thank you for the Filmakademie for hosting us. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for, of course, the team, VRVienna team. There's no I in team, so we're actually more people. You have to come here. I'm sorry, but you will have to join us. This is Elizabeth, by the way. She's also an organizer of VRVienna. There's also Sonia. and Monica. Where's Monica? Monica. Birgit, where's Birgit? We try every event to improve ourselves, but of course we welcome feedback. So if you have feedback for us, if you have suggestions, if you have comments, if you have nice things to say about us, please share it, like it, comment it, and we are happy to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here, and keep enjoying the evening. Grab some beer. Grab some beer. It's still time.
Muy chévere estaba.
Sí, ¿verdad? Súper bien, ¿verdad?
Ya voy a ver. Voy a dar a Victoria. Ya se fue a ver.
¿Sí?
Sí.
Ah, bueno.
Yo no me fui porque ella se fue con amigos a la playa.
Sí. Qué bueno. Qué bueno, qué bueno.
A ella le encanta todo lo de horror.
Súper. Sí, que es genial para los chicos más que nada. Como tiene la edad, ¿verdad?
sehr geil. Das ist so eine, ich glaube, wenn man anfängt zu schauen, kann man sich was realisieren oder irgendjemand sagt, man so. Das ist auch dann verliert man. Was ist da? Der Brille drauf. Kommst du mit uns? Nicht mehr, wenn du magst, kannst du jetzt. Ja, gerne, sehr gerne.